NRL Fantasy Round 1 is in the books, and this is a massive episode. Probably the most important buy, hold, sell we're going to do all year. Biz, welcome back. Today, just a quick agenda for you. We're going to be talking about the buys, holds, sells, the big traps, and the cash cows for this week, mate. And it wouldn't be a buy, hold, sell video without us jumping into the gun.
Oh, Tommy Talal, let's go.
Got to address the elephant in the room, right?
That's the best way to start, honestly. This is why it's going to be the most important episode for the whole year.
Mate, I mean, we'll talk about him towards the end. But look, just to introduce us, I'm Longy. So I'm previous fantasy champ. It's been quite a while now, but I've been playing for about 20 years. And we got Biz on the show too. Biz, you've had more top 100 finishes than I have. So, going for that maiden victory, but a good pedigree.
I'd happily swap multiple top 50 finishes for your win, mate. So, but actually, you know what? When you won, the prize pot was really, really juicy. Now it's not so much. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, it's pride now, right? At this point, I'm sort of going for that, first time back-to-back champ. But hey, look, let's jump right into it. So we got the buys for today. So first one here, and we're just going to go through this list, basically talk through that's sort of the style that we do here for this video. A lot of detailed analysis. First one, Taylor May, 627k. He's got dual position now. He's playing center and wing fullback for the Penrith Panthers. Look, he is just an absolute gun. My thoughts on Taylor May are that he's super talented. He's moved to center this year. He's in a very strong Penrith side. And even in a game where the Storm clamped up the Panthers, kept them completely scoreless, he was so dangerous. He was creating opportunities by himself. And he's going to keep doing that this year. So I'm looking at him and I'm looking at other guys around that range, like a Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, for example. And I think there's no comparison. I think Taylor May could be that top tier center keeper for this year, and for that reason, he's a buy because he's at a cut price right now.
Yeah, can't disagree with any of that. He's actually probably at the top of my buyers list this week for my particular team, but that's because I'm wing fullback needy this week, and I also don't have center coverage because I had Nick Cottridge. So I need a dual position player. Taylor May is the guy. I think you're right. I think he has shown that he could be maybe the top performing center for this year. Obviously, Dan Gagai came out last week with another brilliant performance. But Taylor May's got all the credentials. He's kind of like his brother, who we'll talk about in a second, but huge work rates, even at center. Like he looks for the ball. He's a tackle buster. He's an offloader. And the thing that surprised me most is his willingness to tackle. Now, you'll see a lot of these times, these offensive centers, they'll make like 5 to 10 tackles a game. Well, Taylor May actually made 18 tackles with 1 miss on the weekend. And it backs up his World Club performance where he scored 50 plus in another low-scoring game where Penrith didn't look slick. And so he's scoring 50 plus. He's averaging, 60-odd across 2 games when Penrith aren't doing so well. And just like last year, we saw Penrith start slow and they built into the season. So, look, as a center, to be averaging 60-odd after 2 games without scoring a try is pretty impressive. And if you think back to last week, he actually had a really nice break where he gassed a few Storm players. He was much faster than I expected and ended up with a try assist. So that was about a 15-point play if you include the assist, the line breaks, and tackle breaks in the meters. So he could have easily finished at 80 plus. So, we've discussed how good he is. I guess in terms of thinking back a bit, the pitfalls, he was already priced at 44. He's now priced about 46, 47. So, look, the chances of Taylor May averaging 55 to 60 from a center position is low. Like, there is going to be games where he's going to get 20, 30. Like, it's inevitable for a center. So, you're probably purchasing him now for the dual position. He's still underpriced by probably 50 to 100K for sure, at minimum. But I can't see him being worth more than 750, 800K. But I think you can ignore the price because, like I said, he's probably going to be the best player in the position. So you can get on him now. The only thing I'd caveat and be wary of is Penrith have a reasonably early buy, and a lot of people have Cleary, some people have Yo. So you're going to have a lot of cash sitting out early. So I think it's a pretty fulsome analysis on Taylor May. We've laid it out for you. Now go get him if you're a believer. And I think I'm a believer. I think I'll be getting him this week if I can.
Yeah, he's a really important one, right? So you're paying up big for an outside back in round 2. So we're going very deep on that. Some of the other guys that we talked through on this list, it's a quick yes, a quick no. Taylor May, it's very juicy. If I had more trades, I'd go get him for sure. I just don't know if I can prioritize with trades. Next guy on this list, though, Terrell May. So, mate, the May brothers are up this list. well, 2 of 3 anyway. But for Terrell May, look, he came on in that game, and Trent Robinson said himself he could not take him off. So he was just a guy who he passed the eye test, he passed the stat test. Situation isn't bad either because you got Lenu out for 8 weeks now. Rio Hargraves comes back in. Rio Hargraves isn't going to play more than 40, 45 minutes a game. So the situation is good for Terrell May to get these minutes again. If he can average sort of 50 to 55 minutes, which he didn't look tired at all. It wasn't a situation where he was just playing really energetic attack and being lazy in defense. He was doing everything. If he can do that, then he can be that 55 average at 523K. I always think he's a must-have just for the upside at this play. And Biz, you were high on him in the preseason, especially. You were higher than anyone on Terrell May because of that run he had at the back end of last year. And your question was, can he get the minutes without Lenu and Rio Hargraves? Is that question answered now with Lenu out for 2 months of footy?
I love Terrell May. Both the brothers, I think I was almost one of the highest guys on him. Like, there's the 1% ownership or whatever, they were higher than me because I couldn't take him in the end. The minutes question is still there, right? Because I think what's going to happen with the Roosters pack is that it's going to be a pretty fluid situation. Like the minutes are going to change week in, week out. Like you saw last week where obviously there was 2 injuries, with Wong going off and Satili going off. So it's pretty hard to predict. I think Terrell May could average 50, but the thing is the Roosters have so many forwards and they've got guys like Angus to come who could come in and slot in, through the middle rotation. Now, here's the thing with, even Connor Watson over the weekend, he played 80 minutes at lock for the reserves and he scored 83 fantasy points. So he's clearly doing a lot in the reserves. And my view is Connor Watson's too good for the reserves and they see him as a lock more than a hooker. So there is a lot of competition for middle minutes. On the flip side, Terrell May, he's a beast, man. Like you give him 50 minutes. He had 2 finals games last year. I'm not sure if you guys looked into the final stats, but he scored 56 and 84. So it's been 3 games in a row now, if you include the 2 finals the Roosters went out with last year, where they gave May big minutes. And to be frank, I think Terrell May, he's at this stage of his career, a stronger prop than Warrior Hargreaves. I actually rate him higher than Lenu anyway, even though Lenu got the starting spot. And their prop rotation, he's got like Nat White, etc. It's not the most solid. So I'm kind of talking myself into it. The worst thing, the problem with just Terrell May is he came on with 15 minutes to go in the first half. So there was a chance that if they did proper rotations and that he had a bad play or whatever, he only played 30, 40 minutes. So I'm probably not going to prioritize him this week because I'm happy to pay 560, 570K for him if he looks like a 50 average player. But I'm not sure that if he's just getting 40 minutes that I want to buy in. He needs to play out that second half kind of thing. So I think I'll wait a week.
Because if he's there, right? He's 523K. Morgan Smithies down this list, 538K. How do you feel about that comparison?
That's a really tricky one. I think Smithies, until Whitehead and Horsburgh come back, he's like 70 to 80 minutes. Like he had the HIA for 7 minutes before the half, but he played 12 minutes and he played 68, 70 minutes. Smithies is a known commodity in terms of, I think I saw a stat where in his debut as a 19-year-old, he made 72 tackles. Like he is just that. He's like a Sean Fenson. Yeah, I don't know if the old coaches remember Sean Fenson, but he was all defense. Yeah, all defense, not much
exactly
attack.
No,
don't know about that. But
from a distance, when you see the little number 13 jersey surrounded by those
I can see it. I can see it. Yeah. But coming back to your question, who would I prefer? I think if you think Terrell's getting 45 to 50 minutes, I would take Terrell because I think that is going to be his role for the season, maybe with a build-up. Whereas Smithies, you're buying. Now he'll get big minutes. But Whitehead is a big minute commander, and so is Corey Horsburgh. So even if Horsburgh plays in the prop rotation, it's still middle minutes, right? Yeah. And they've got Mariota and stuff who are like young guns who are they're high on. So with Tarpanay, with Josh Papali, Horsburgh, Whitehead, Husking might have to play in the middle rotation for a bit to get minutes. Like it's a log jam. I like Smithies, but you have to buy him with the thought that it's a potential 3-week rental. So I would personally, I think, go Terrell May myself. But it could bite you in the bum because Smithies could hold that high minute lock roll the whole season. So
it'd be hard. It'd be really tough because, yeah, like you said, Horsburgh steals minutes. Hosking playing so well is actually a problem for Smithies owners too, because he's playing so well, he's going to earn a spot. Whereas if he came out and he played really poorly in that game, you could say, all right, cool. He'll just sub out for Whitehead. But he was one of their best. I'm on Terrell May as well at this stage. I've got Terrell May over Smithies. If Smithies played 70 to 80 minutes a week, then it's a no-brainer conversation. But Terrell May, it feels like it's going to incline through the season. It feels like if Victor Radley was to get suspended or hurt at some point, then Terrell May could potentially just become this demigod fantasy producer with 80 minutes to go around, right? So if he ever got the start, I don't know if he even needs to start. Maybe he can be prime Andrew Fafita coming off the bench 20 minutes into the game, right?
I don't think he needs to start. You're right.
Yeah, so he's prime time, but they're both good options. Tommy Turbo, 662K. I'll let you speak on him a bit more because I know you're looking a bit more closely than I am. But one play that I saw on Tommy's game was there was a loose ball and Tommy bent over to scoop it up and try and go to the field off a loose play. And last year, Turbo wasn't making those plays. He wasn't going for those balls. He was playing a bit more conservatively. This year, that was a sign of that intent. We saw it all game. He was having a crack at basically everything. And he's going to have those games where he scores 80, 90, 100 points this year. But he's also going to have those games where he's a bit quieter too. For me, 662K, it's almost a no-brainer in terms of value. Is he someone that you think people should prioritize if they are needing that wing fullback cover with Keeney out, with Kotrick out, with all those guys, Pappenhausen sort of being a bit dodgy too?
Yeah, definitely. I think if I could afford fullbacks, if I had a budget for fullbacks this week in the 650, 660K mark, it'd be Taylor May first because I think that centre coverage is important. Turbo next, but I think affording both will be tricky, so I'm probably going to have to end up on a Rapana or something. But anyway, I think you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. The thing with Turbo last year is he looked hampered for a lot of the season. He looked slow. He was getting outpaced by front rowers. So he didn't look great. But what I really liked about Turbo in Vegas was his work rate was Christian McCaffrey level. Like his usage rate, that he touched the ball about 1 million times. And he had 2 tries disallowed, one where there was a knock-on in the play and the other one where he lost it, where Damien Cook had a great try saver on him. That 53, 54 could have easily become an 80. And Tommy Turbo, with that much usage, he's dangerous. Like he's going to offload. He's a lanky guy. When you tackle him around the legs, he'll pop the offload. That's 4 points. He'll get line breaks. Manly look a lot better than expected. Like I thought Manly would be good, but they came out looking like a team in mid-season form, even though you compare how Manly played with all the other teams who look junk in attack, they look much further ahead. But on the flip side of that, is that because they played on a hype field in Vegas with a dry track? Because I throw it out to you that those 2 games look far and beyond advanced to what we saw in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the dry track...
the pitch was crazy. The pitch was crazy.
It was very quick pitch. So at the end of the day, look, we're talking about Tommy Turbo. I mean, if I just give 30 seconds on his counterpart in Vegas, Latrell Mitchell, he came out with 80 points. No one's really talking about him because Tommy's had that crazy season and people want that excuse to get on. But I think Latrell is just as good a buy. You saw how involved he was. He looks a lot fitter this year. I think Latrell has the potential to score much more than Tommy just because that Tommy's not a power runner. He's like a finesse and speed and just IQ. Latrell can just barge you over 6 people for a try, and those are worth 30 points. So 80 points first up. I like Trell as well, but look, Tommy Turbo, I think he's in for a big year. Even Teddy looked really good, to be honest. I'm not going to get one of these guys this week, but
you're right about Turbo. I think he represents a bit more value in these spots as well. Look, the pitch, he loses that great pitch. Also, why aren't our pitches like that? Surely we can just upgrade our pitches. The other thing, though, is, look, Tommy Turbo, one big upgrade for this week that you haven't talked about is the move in the roster.
Oh, God. We're just going to work him into every, section. Yes. I want to actually get Tommy Turbo.
He's got Mr. Automatic on the wing, mate. Mr.
Boom, boom.
Automatic.
Shoot him up.
Tommy Talau,
Honestly.
he could score 5 tries and get you 40 fantasy points.
I'm
Tommy
actually
Talau.
thinking of getting Talau this week just because I think Tommy Turbo will give him some tries.
All right, you can just say that's actually good time when you go into traps.
No, we have to cover my last guy on the buys.
Oh yes, Bryce
Cardi. Let me
Cartwright.
talk about Cardi. Let me talk about
Cardi.
him. All right.
Cardi. Let's go.
All right. So I came out in the trial review saying, that Cardi could be the best edge, at least for the first 5-10 rounds of the year. He just looks like he's in prime form. He's like the go-to attacking forward for the Eels now. It used to be Sean Lane. Now it's Cardi. He's come out with a 2-try, 90-point performance. And I'm sitting there thinking, damn, he was in my team for so long. And then I was kind of, I hate mid-rangers. It was at that awkward price mark.
That would
I got
have
rid
been
of him.
easy, man. If you had him.
Dude, it would be so nice.
Because that they were the two that you were really.
If I went Terrell May, Bryce Cartwright, I wouldn't be in this position I was in. So it's yeah. This week, this is the week.
I was on Taylor May all preseason and just didn't pull the trigger.
I know.
So I get you, man. It's tough.
Sometimes you just got to play with your gut rather than like the math.
Next year, man. Next year we just go all in on the vibes.
Anyway, I'm not panicking here. I think even though week 1 was tough, I think all the good coaches are in a similar position with the good. Anyway, they might be terrible buys. Maybe we thought they were good, but anyway, Bryce Cartwright. Look, the thing with him is he scores in every category. He tackles, he runs a lot. He obviously has one of the best offloads in the game, and he had like 6 offloads on the weekend for like 24 points. He's shown he can score tries in this Eels team. We've seen what Brad Arthur did for Isaiah Papali'i versus him at the Tigers. Now, look. In this current NRL fantasy scoring format, Bryce Cartwright is tailor-made for it. He's just an attacking forward with enough work rate and a lot of attacking stats. And what I love about Cartwright is that the back end of last year, not just this year, but the back end of last year, Eels were feeding him. Moses plays on that side, and they were just giving him – like Moses and Cardi were the power combination. And I thought the only problem with Cardi is that I don't know if he's going to get 80 minutes because that rotation, it was a bit different because they were on top.
It was weird.
It was weird,
wasn't it? Yeah.
He
went to lock during that game.
He went to lock, yeah. He played middle. And I think that could happen because if they got Tuolungi on the bench again, but they kind of give Tuolungi like 50-odd minutes. I don't think he's going to get that many minutes if not a blowout. But the thing with Cardi is like I don't see this year games where he's scoring less than 50 because he usually has 150 meters and 25 tackles for the Eels. He's got rid of those crap misses. Like he used to be an arm grabber. He's still not the best defensive players, but it's got a lot better.
Yep.
And then you add in offloads and attacking stats on top. I think his low game's 45-50, and he's got this explosive. We saw last year scoring 70-odd. He kind of came in last year. He started at second row because of injuries. He worked his way into the season, but it wasn't until the back end of the season that you saw the big Brycey Cartwright. And now it's his position. He's the attacking threat. He's the focal point. He could be anything. He could still be the best average edge for the whole year. Now, like, I've revised my estimate. Yeah. He's got the sick draw, but he's tempting to.
No, dude, edge is up for grabs. It is absolutely up for grabs, that edge spot. Because Dave Fafita, he comes in half baked, right? So is it Bryce Cartwright? Is it Ola Kawatu? Is it someone else? I'm high on Eli Katoa, for example. But like it's a spot where anyone can come out on top. So Brycey Cartwright, he is a buy. You're not overreacting to round 1. He's a guy where if you can fit him in and it suits your team, go and do it because he's going to have some big games. Going to jump to the traps next. So the guys who you should not be buying. These ones are a bit more straightforward, but look, for Gagai and Kenner, I think it's 244K, by the way. I'm just going to blame the font for that one coming through like that. But for Gagai and Kenner, Gagai, it's a case of Munro. When is Munro back? It's indefinite right now, from what I've seen, but he could be back anytime. It could be a few weeks. Gagai, I don't really know if I necessarily back the talent enough to say, hey, Tane Milne, Isaac Thompson, they're not going to bother him either because they could easily come in too. And then for Richie Kenner, look, Jack Whiten comes back very soon. I don't think Kenner had a good fantasy performance, but again, I don't think that they're going to back the talent enough to say, hey, Kenner's earned his spot. Jack Whiten, you're playing off the bench, or you're playing edge back row, or you're playing somewhere else, right? So I think these guys are both in danger. They're pretty easy to avoid. Corey Jensen, I'll just pound through a few of these and then throw a few to you too. But for Corey Jensen, look, they had a tough spot where Piakura was knocked out 4 minutes into the game and Paddy Carrigan went to the edge. That freed up about 60, 70 minutes of middle forward. Corey Jensen grabbed a bunch of those minutes, did well with them, but he's not going to do that every week. Skip him. Sonny Luke, not good. Mitch Kenny is coming back this week. Sonny Luke could get 5 or 10 minutes this week. And I mean, I know we've both talked about this bit, Biz. What do you think in terms of Sonny Luke's fit? Like, is it that he's not a great player, or is it more that he's just not a fit for this Penrith system?
It's really hard to tell, Longy. I think it's probably more that he doesn't fit the system. I think they really like Kenny. Like he's turned into an 80-minute player. Sonny Luke added quite a bit of electricity when he came off the bench last week, but at the end of the day, they still scored 0 points in 80 minutes. Sonny Luke had a lot of cheap offload points to get him up to 50 plus. Like he's got a low break even, so even if he's scoring 10, 15 for a few weeks, he'll make money. But we saw the Kenny and Luke combination for a whole season last year, and I think it's just going to be more of that. I don't expect anything different from Luke compared to last year. In 15, 25 minutes, he's not a high PPM guy. He'll have these explosive games like last week, but even if he plays 30 minutes, he can only score 15, 20 points. So I think he's an easy skip. I'll go on to the next play just to keep rolling on because we spent a lot of time on the buys, already 21 minutes. The Tape, I think, look, really interested in him in terms of 230K. He's the next big thing out of the Tigers in the centers, apparently. But Olam, that's his spot. I think this is an easy one. Casualty Ward already says Olam's expect to be back next week. So stay off him. I think he could be an interesting buy later in the year, but not now. And then Tuapiki, look, I started with him, but he's only got 3 more weeks left, potentially, maybe even 2. So there's no point wasting 2 trades getting him in and out. That's Chance Nickel Clock's had spot. The other thing with Tuapiki is he looked really good as a runner of the ball, but I didn't see too much playmaking skills. And Warriors didn't score enough points. Like they looked world beating for a lot of the game, but they couldn't finish with tries and points. So, I think Tuapiki was not in threat of losing his spot, but with only a few weeks left, you can't use a trade in or out. You had to start with him or not. Yeah,
spot on, mate. Spot on. They're the traps. Now, these are the guys that you can actually grab. So the cash cows. This is really interesting because some of these guys we're not super high on. Some of these guys are very high on. And first one here was Lockie Galvin. So you got 230K. You got a starting half for the Tigers. It is a strange situation because you have Aiden Caesar sitting in that 14 role. Caesar could play hooker. Caesar could come on at half and they could move Galvin to hooker. Caesar could come on at hooker and, Coruscant's at lock, for example. Caesar might play lock. They played Hastings at lock a few years ago. They could really do anything with that, but I think Lockie Galvin is pretty rock solid. He seems to have won that half role. He's base price, right? And we are all looking for a cash out. He's the guy to cash out to. I don't think there's too much risk in this. If he does lose his spot, then he's still a cash out. And he's still a guy who probably gets back into the team pretty quickly anyway. So I think it's a pretty easy one. Do you know much more about Galvin, or are you keen to move to Duncan?
I started with Galvin last week because I was pretty confident that he'd get a bench spot. Like he looked like that in the preseason. I think even if he was red dot, I was fine with that. But the thing with Galvin is they hyped him up all off season. There've been all reports over the last 12 months saying this guy's the next Cleary. Do I believe that? No. I'm not expecting him to be the next Cleary, but I just read those reports to try and see how far away from the first grade team they'll be. With Galvin, I think, look, Sullivan is not a noted dominant playmaker. He's not going to kick 450, 500 meters a game like Fogg last week or whatever, or Sean Johnson or Moses Hines Cleary. I think Galvin's actually going to do a lot of the playmaking. So I think he's actually a rock solid 17, like a bench player for you. Like I'll probably play him this week. Versus a Flanagan, for example, who's sharing with Ben Hunt. I think Galvin could actually be pretty good. And he looked good in the preseason, scoring points-wise. He liked running the ball, which is good to see. At 230K, I think he's a must-have. He's not there because of injury. He's won that spot. They went and bought Caesar, but he's won the spot over him. Benji, Benji's always been an attacking-minded guy. And Caesar, like you said, is a big body. He could play in the middle if needed. I actually thought that it would be Sullivan missing out versus Caesar. I thought they'd have an experienced half next to Galvin, but this just shows you how much reps they have on him. So he's a must-have, I reckon. Go get him. If you have a Leniu, for example, it's a good cash out for Leniu because I think Galvin will score just as well as Leniu would have, and he's 200K cheaper almost. So must-have. Go get him. Talis Duncan, Longy, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good spot, right? If you're going to be a back row at South, plenty of tries on offer there. Talis Duncan, he's a talented guy. I look at this and I think, look, 413K, we can afford to wait a week. And nothing on the bench says he's going to lose minutes necessarily. But
The problem here is that Cam Murray could easily sneak into that edge role parts of the game, and we could see a 40, 50, 60-minute performance from Talis Duncan. So for this one, I'm happy to wait a week and see this. I have other priorities personally. But at the same time, if he fits your team and if you got all the buys right, then maybe you go and get him this week. I think he's going to be a guy that's in pretty much every team. I mean, do you know much about the stats, or do you have anything else you want to throw in?
I've dug in some stats. So obviously last year he kind of played in the middle rotation. So he had a crazy PPM of 1.02. But if you look at his reserve grade stats, he played 47 minutes at lock last week for about 23 points. And then his kind of average last year was 44. So I think a lot of people are expecting him to come out and have a 1 PPM, and, play 50, 60 minutes, 70 minutes and score 60, 70 points. Like the difference between a PPM at middle versus edge is worlds apart. Like I think Talis Duncan can definitely give you a 40 average. I think he's like a must buy. But when I say he's a must buy, it's not this week. He's at 413K. So even if he gives you 50 this week, he's not going to fly up to 500K. He doesn't have a score in his bank to get the price rolls moving. So it's always a bit slower if it's your first score. So I 100% agree with you. If you don't have any priorities, like for example, I need a wing fullback, so I have to prioritize a wing fullback. But if your team is looking solid, you don't need to prioritize anything else, then go get Talis Duncan. I think it's a great pick.
Yep, he's easy. Whereas Liam Henry, less exciting in my eyes. So we go to him, and look, Lindsay Smith moved to the edge for a lot of that game because Sorensen was out and because they don't trust Garner with 80 minutes. So Liam Henry got some extra minutes from that. 329K, too expensive for me. I think this one's a pretty easy one to skip. He would need an injury or two to be relevant in my eyes. Are you on the same page there?
I don't mind Henry just because I think he'll get 30, 35 minutes this year. And he is a guy who has a 1 PPM. He had like a 65 average in reserves. Like he's a fantasy weapon.
Yeah.
So I think at his price, you're happy to just take 30 minutes, 30 points. Or
329K though.
It is awkward. Like I won't get him myself, but like, for example, you saw with the like reserves last week, there were a lot of dud reserves. Like people don't want to play like Strange, etc. So Henry's a guy I think you could plug in there for 329 and you're pretty safely looking at 30 plus most weeks. So I'd be pretty happy with that. He is an option I'm looking at just for that stability in that middle position. And I think he could be like a guy who is giving you 30s and then closer to origin period and with injuries. Like if for example, if he comes in and you've obviously got Isaiah Yeo and who not playing origin, like he could get a lot of points and minutes there. But that's far away. So he's a slower burner. But I mean, Seyfarth is a lot more interesting this week to most people. So
yeah, it's a long burn on Henry. Seyfarth, I think Seyfarth's a bit of a trap, actually.
Same.
And they like last year they were moving the lock starters around. They ran John Bateman there a bit as well. Like for Seyfarth, like we were talking about, even Caesar might play lock a bit. They've got Pole on the bench as well. I think Seyfarth could be one of those guys who he doesn't have a great PPM historically. Admittedly, he's played some time on the edge, but it's not a great PPM. 359K, if he was base price or even maybe 250, 270, we'd go do it. But at 359K, you're expecting him to be a pretty solid fantasy producer, and there is serious potential for him to come out and score 25, 30 points this week.
Yeah.
And that be his norm. So he's a skip for me, but we had to throw him into this conversation because so many people are asking about him.
Yeah, I think I'll quickly just add something that, I watched, he was in my team during the preseason, but I watched the trials and he was kind of one of the first players to come off a lot of the time. And then they played for Apollo big minutes there. So I just don't think that Seyfarth is probably getting more than 50, 55 minutes. And his PPM at lock, I think he's going to be more of a ball playing lock. So he's not going to be the workhorse lock. So I think if he's getting 50, 55 minutes, he could be a 30-point guy. And at 359, like it's not enough, especially when there's not the best job security. So yeah, I'll be skipping him.
Yeah, there's no juice in it. And we've thrown Ethan Strange in here as well, 254K. Look, most of us have Strange, but there's about half of coaches that don't have him. I want to really hammer home that last week is not cause for major concern. So I'm getting a few questions about, should I trade Strange for Galvin, for example? Don't go do that. So you got a guy who you can plug into his starting center spot. He's a guy who is a starting half on a team with a pretty good forward pack. He's a guy who had 22 run meters and no kick meters last week. So it's not an ideal situation. But I'm looking at him and thinking, you know what? I'm probably going to start him this week. I'm probably going to be pretty happy about it because he's up against the Tigers. So what better game for him to sort of open things up and really start playing some more attacking footy than the West Tigers? Are you confidently starting him this week, or are you thinking that you're going to try and fade him?
I'm going to start him just because when I bought my centers, I bought the 2 base price guys, Burbo and Strange, and I just that if I got 20 from them, like I'm fine with that because I'm spending money elsewhere. Like I'm using that money for Hines, Cleary, and it didn't go well week 1, but Hines and Cleary had like really soft games and they still scored 50. So that's the formula I'm using. I don't care as long as Strange is good enough to give me 20. That's fine. But I agree. Like he's 21 last week, pretty much came of the definition of base stats, like no kick meters. He's going to start getting kick meters. Like they're going to start targeting Fog with kick pressure, right? When they realize that he's doing all the kicking, they're going to have to go to Strange, and he's going to run the ball a lot more than 20 meters a game. So I think he'll be at least a 25 guy overall.
All right, here's my question for you then. You got Strange and you've got Tommy Talau. Which one are you starting if you had both of them this week?
Strange. I mean, Tommy Talau's got the Roosters, right? We saw how good they looked defensively last week.
All right, no Talau. Okay, fair enough. Strange it is. And we're going to try and weave back to Tommy Talau every time. Look, we had a few questions before as well.
Wait. Why is Tommy Talau not on the Cows list, man?
Because I can't bring myself to recommend that anyone buys him.
I'll do it then. Go buy him, guys.
It's so devout. Oh, people were asking, by the way, we went live this Arvo, looked at team lists and all that. But a lot of people were asking for you specifically to comment on the Cleary and Hines combo and whether they can stay strong on that.
Stay strong.
I've tried to represent you and say, hey,
you're crazy to try to do that. Yeah. What? You're crazy to try. Cleary, Panthers scored 0 points and he scored 51. Hines, if you guys actually watch the game, and this is off topic, but I'll quickly summarize. Like the Sharks were getting mauled for the first half. Like the Warriors should have won that game by 30 points. But they just stuck in there. Hines also copped a knock to his quad. So if there's about 10 minutes, he wasn't doing anything. He soldiered on, luckily. So assuming that's fine, like Hines has got the Dogs this week. Like I'm captaining Hines this week if he's at full strength. So full health.
He's got 3 easy games coming up. He's got 3 on. I think he's got. Is it the Tigers next week? Something? So
there's no thesis change for these guys. Like one poor game and it happened at the same time. Like don't worry, you've seen seasons of their performance. Like
it happened last year too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if both of them get like 90 this week.
I actually think they'll be the 2 top scorers this week.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So
I
anyway,
need to see that. All right.
I don't have Hines, but I just reckon they'll kill it. So sells here, the guys who you should be selling, and we really want to hammer home why you're selling these guys. So why is it cause for concern when there's a low score, and why is it not cause for concern? So each of these guys kind of represents a different scenario to explain that. Ezra Mam's the first one here, and look, he's a gun player in real life. A lot of people bought him because he's so good in real life, but he's not a fantasy producer. He's a guy who, we were talking about Strange before, but he's a guy who doesn't really kick the ball, doesn't have a crazy high offensive work rate in terms of running the ball like a Dylan Brown, and scores basically no points from defense because he misses quite a few tackles. I think it's 4 tackles a game, something like that, 4.5 tackles a game or something like that. And then defensive work rate isn't that high. So he's just not a guy who's going to produce few in fantasy. He has to score a hat trick to crack 60 kind of thing. It's kind of the opposite of Cleary. So for Ezra Mam, that's a hard sell if you bought him. Probably shouldn't have had him in the first place. Learn the lesson, move on, you'll be sweet. Whereas Lenu and Tupanua, very different conversation. Look, Lenu, 8 weeks suspended.
Yeah, I've got these guys. I can happily talk about them. I'm also like guys, like when we say sells, there's a range of times you'd sell. Like I'm predominantly thinking is you've spent the whole preseason tossing and turning between players. Yep. If they got the role you wanted and you expected, you keep them because one score might not be indicative of what their performance will be. So like unless they got way less minutes or they got benched early or they didn't get as many like as dominant playmaking as you thought, hold on because you spent months thinking about these guys. Don't let one game change that because they could easily come out and smash week 2. But Lenu, look, he's a must trade. He's an obvious one. He got the role, like he got the 40 plus minutes. So don't beat yourself up if you got Lenu. Like I got him. He got the minutes that we all hoped for. Unfortunately, he copped an 8-week suspension. And Sitili Tupanua, he's an interesting one because he got injured at the start of the second half. So he played the first 40 straight. Was he going to play 80 minutes? Hard to tell because he could have played 60 minutes and Wong comes back for him at the 60-minute mark and Butcher stays on. But then last year, even in the final series, they always played Wong 50, 60 minutes and Butcher 80 minutes. So Satili might be in a new Butcher role where he gets 80 minutes. I'm thinking of holding him this week just because I'd look silly to trade out a 400k player who could average 45 if he's getting 80 minutes. So, like, if he gives me another dud score, so be it. Like, he's priced at 30, even if he plays 45. Like, he looked on track for at least 50 minutes, right? Like, you're not going to sub in the first 10 minutes of the second half. So, even if he gives me 25, 30 points, he's not going to lose too much money. So, I'll probably hold Satili unless I really need to cash him. Like, I think going Satili to Talis Duncan is sideways. Like, it's not helping you. You're actually losing the dual position for similar scoring for a same unknown commodity. So I wouldn't do that. So, yeah, I think Tupanua, you've got him in sells up, so keen to hear your view, but I'm thinking maybe it's worth waiting a week.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's some upside there. The play there more is if you have a really good team and you can move Tupanua to Galvin and you can make a meaningful upgrade to your roster. Yeah. That's where, because that's the conversation that's coming up a lot. Moving Tupanua is allowing people to buy a Terrell May for someone who wasn't contributing, basically.
So, yeah, if you can upgrade him for sure, or use his money to upgrade elsewhere, like then I don't think you're going to cry not having Satili, but only if you're getting a meaningful upgrade. Like, don't go sideways.
Yeah. No, he's not a rush to sell, right?
Yeah.
And same with Cam McInnes, for example, is a little bit different. He got a different minutes role to what people were expecting. Look, neither of us were high on him. He is a guy who last year they had everyone injured and he couldn't get the minutes. He came out and he played 40 minutes. He scored 42 points. Fantasy production is fantastic per minute, but he's just not that guy in terms of getting big minutes in that Sharks pack. So, yeah, 695K. I'd cut my losses personally, but at the same time, he could come out and score 70 this week as well. So don't react too aggressively if he does have those big games because he's shown that he has these 40-minute games in him as well.
Yeah, I think I would actually be holding McInnes myself just simply because I think again, coming up to watching the game, the first 20 minutes was a Warriors mauling. So the Sharks were getting run ragged. So I think they kind of iced Cam McInnes early. Like, he was one of the first players off. They were just running big boppers at him constantly. I just think that's like, I think he's going to play 55, 60 minutes. Like, he's the captain now, right? He's going to get 30 minutes in the first half and maybe 20, 25 minutes in the second half. At 1 ppm, he's still solid. He's at an awkward price, though. So, like, I get why you'd move him, but
at 40 minutes, though.
He's not getting 40. I guarantee you. I know, but I guarantee you he's not getting 40 minutes this week. Like that.
I agree.
He's getting 55 minutes this week. It is concerning, but it is concerning, right? Like, but it's the same as like the Hopgood thing. Like, he got less minutes in a. Like, I guess the difference is it wasn't
a blowout though.
It wasn't a blowout. It was a very close game.
Cam Murray got big minutes. Victor Radley played 80 minutes. Like, in the games that mattered, the important players were playing big minutes.
No, I agree. I mean, it was a very strange one. It's very hard to explain. But on the flip side, Dale Finucane didn't come on till like this 50th, 60th minute even. So it's not like McInnes was getting subbed off for Dale. Like, I don't really know what was going on in the rotation, but that PPM is so nice. Like, if you've got
that even more worrying though?
It is more worrying actually.
Even more minutes, right?
Yeah,
their edge back rowers aren't leaking minutes. Their hooker's not leaking minutes.
Yeah,
right?
And Hamlin-Ueli's coming back soon as well. Yeah, it's not great.
It's such a different
maybe you trade him. Maybe you do trade him, but it's just
Oregon played more minutes than you would expect. But I know.
I
think you can move McInnes. If you could say McInnes and Tupanua for May, for example.
I'll do that. I'll do that. But I think McInnes. I think it's just simply because Warriors have such a big forward pack. It was more situational. But I think, you're not going to, if you move him, like you said, those trades still make sense to me. I'm just playing devil's advocate. But
Oh, look, you're right. He's not going to be 40 minutes every week. Absolutely not. But it's more the opportunity cost, right? So I think he's a pretty solid sell.
Yeah.
Taumalolo is another one. Look, 20 minutes in this game, 22 minutes, something like that. He came on. He played a great first stint. 40% of coaches have Taumalolo, which blew my mind. But he came on a great first stint. Just never came back in that game. Never came back out. They said they put him on ice because they were winning by so much. That's a worry if you have Taumalolo because they're a pretty good team. They're going to win games. So I'd be selling him pretty quickly. And again, he's very close in price to Terrell May. You've got like 70K to find if you want to go get Terrell May. No, not everything is about Terrell May, by the way. It's just he's at this price point where it's hard not to compare him to Taumalolo.
It's the Terrell May show, or the May Brothers show. With
Is it the
Tamalolo,
May show or?
There you go. That was a good segue for you. I guess on Tamalolo, he's even if he got iced, the fact that his first stint was only 20 minutes, because the game wasn't iced after 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't look good promising for him. So yeah, definitely, I think as much as I love Lolo, he's not fantasy relevant anymore, especially with Payton. But yeah, Moses, why are you selling him? That's a surprise.
Okay, I had to put this on here because I got asked about Moses a lot today when I was live. I'm a bit worried about that injury. So I was down at that game live. So good. I didn't take my jersey off for like 48 hours afterwards. Eventually got stopped by security at the door at work, and they said, "No, you smell like shit. Come on, mate, get it off." No, it was good to see Parramatta come out and get a win. Mitch Moses in that game was absolutely flying. Did a little groin injury. Stopped goal kicking. Stopped general play kicking for a bit. He picked it up towards the end of the game and wasn't running the ball like he was before that. Para's attack kind of came to a halt a bit as well at that point too. I sort of saw that and thought, I wouldn't want to worry about that. So 764K, he could come out this week. The reports are that he's fine for this week. If he comes out this week against Penrith and he's a bit gimpy again, I mean, do you want to deal with that? Do you want to deal with that risk? Is it too early in the year to be worrying about that sort of niggle? For 764K, you can go get something very good for that as well. And again, if we were looking at, you have Tupanua, for example, you go Tupanua to Galvin, Mitch Moses to whoever you want at this stage. And maybe you go Moses to Hines. You pick up that pod. I would rather have Hines and Galvin than Moses and Tupanua. Just an example. I just think at the price, you can't take the gamble.
Yeah, I think so. I think the rebalance of team does sound good. On the flip side, though, I don't think the quad's really going to bother him too much. I think he's by the end of the
a groin.
Sorry, yeah, groin. My bad.
Groin is worrying.
Yeah, groin. Yeah, but like I get that. But like even towards the back end of the game, he looked fine. Like he was kicking the ball. The last 20 minutes, he started doing all the long kicking again. I think he's still a keeper, but I agree with your rebalance. Like if you can turn him into someone to get 760K, I just think that the two best halves are always going to be Cleary and Hines. So you might as well get them while you can, especially if Hines and Cleary keep falling. But the high break even doesn't help for Moses as well. It was a bad week for halves, to be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, it's just something I don't want to worry about next week. Yeah. Now let's go into the holds. So the guys that we think you should be hanging on to and having patience with. Like us, be patient with us.
We can probably speed through these ones. These ones look pretty easy.
Pretty straightforward, right? Pia Kura got concussed. Don't worry about it. He's back this week. Slightly longer burn to value. We're easy there. Sean Lane, look, you got up and watched this game at 3 a.m., mate. I was down there live. He didn't do much. But at 548K, he's got the upside to average 50 points in that back row spot.
And he got the 80 minutes. Unlike
hold the faith.
Yeah, so they gave him the most minutes, right? So he was the only one who played 80 minutes. So.
And he has a documentary as well. So that's true. In my points per documentary league, he's pretty high value. Lukey and Cotter. I want to talk about these guys because I watched this game very closely, and it was a weird kind of game. So Lukey had some serious problems in this game for fantasy. He had a HIA in the first half. He came back out there, played the first 10 minutes of the second half, then got subbed off again. Then came back on at lock and then scored one of the tiniest tries you will ever see in football.
I thought he scored his try while he was playing on the edge, I think, in the middle stint.
Or was that before? Okay.
Yeah, it was before.
It was in the second half.
It was a dodgy try. Yeah.
It was filthy. You're right. It was the edge. But 50 points, it was just, I'm getting people saying, hey, should I go buy Lukey? I'm getting other people saying, hey, should we sell Lukey? He's kind of dodgy. Yeah, he's definitely a hold. He's a hold.
Yeah.
I would be
he's neither a buy, neither a sell. Yeah, look, I'll play the devil's advocate on Lukey just because I wasn't high on him at all in the offseason. I think he's still the 55, 60-minute player because they've got Kula Kefu on the bench who they're really high on. And I think the HI only cost him like 7 minutes because he kind of got it late. So I think it helped him stay on. But I think he's not going to come back at lock at the back end of the game when it's not a blowout. Like that's going to be Tamalolo, Cotter staying on. Guys like that. So I think that was just giving him minutes while they could ice Lola. So, I think he's definitely undervalued, but he seems, he's not going to be as crazy as a lot of people expected. So I think he's definitely a hold.
I still reckon, man, he's got tries in him. And my
I agree.
He scored 2 tries in the first 4 games of the year. He's up to 1.
Yeah. No, I agree.
We'll see if it keeps creeping up. But Cotter's the other one there, right? So 51 minutes, 41 points last week. I reckon that's going to be 60 minutes in a game that's more competitive. He didn't get the minutes sort of down the stretch. So for Cotter, you throw that to a 50-point game in 60 minutes. You didn't have any offloads, or you didn't have any cheapies, any sort of freebies in that game. I'm not worried about Cotter. A lot of people are trying to sell him. 586K, you got the captain there. You got a guy who's probably going to average 50. Don't stress it. Just ride it. You've got him already. You don't have to trade. If you have players that you like, you don't have to force a trade with Cotter.
Yeah, I'd wait a week at least for Cotter, because the thing is, I think he was on track to play 60 minutes, and they subbed him off at the end just because of the score. Yeah. So I think he played 30 in the first, and he came back on at 50-minute mark. So you assume he finishes the game. So I think 55, 60 minutes is what it will get. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about Cotter. At least watch one more week before you trade him.
Did you watch the Storm game?
Yes, I did. Joe Champ, man, like that guy was tackling like he was running like Tarzan, tackling like Jane. He had so many arm grabs.
So weird.
He was -1 for half the game. But then I don't know who was in charge of fantasy reviewing this game, but he got a massive update to 19, and then a post near end of lockout update to 26.
It took all Cleary's points, man.
They're like, oh, we'll take. Yeah, that was so strange. Anyway,
I was fuming. I went down the ranks so much when he.
I'm lucky. I had Captain Haas and I had Joe Chan in my scoring bench, so it worked well for me. But look, you definitely hold him. I think at 263K, he got more minutes than I expected, like 65 minutes. He also probably played the best defensive team he'll come up against. So he looks like a guy. He looks likely for a try or like a big tackling plays. Like you're not going to get. He's going to be a guy who scores in like clumps. Like he's going to have like 3 points in 30 minutes and then have like a 15-point run. I think he showed enough to be a scoring player, like kind of a 17th, 16th guy. So yeah, definitely. I don't even know why he'd sell him. So I'm not sure why he's in a hold. So are we running out?
People have asked the question. People have asked the question.
He was on -1 for most of the game. Yeah. No. If he's getting 65 minutes and like in that Storm team, he'll be fine.
He'd be fine. Yeah. I'll throw 2 more things in here as well. One, he is on the Munster edge. So when Munster comes back, that's going to help him a lot. Pezzett looked out of his depth against Penrith. And secondly, and Jay-Z, a mate of mine, originally mentioned this, in a game where they conceded no points to last year's premiers, he was the back rower. Bellamy's going to see that, and we think about fantasy all day, all night, right? But Bellamy is there. He's thinking about winning comps. Holding Penrith to 0 is a winning comp thing to do. So, yeah, I think Joe Chan's job security is pretty solid. I think if we're going to see Sean Bloor come in, we're going to see him off the bench first, and we're going to have pretty early warnings. So that's an easy one. Kyle Flanagan is the last one here. And if someone said to me, I'm trading Kyle Flanagan, I would say, yeah, fair enough. But the one thing that is holding me back on Kyle Flanagan is we've seen 1 week of him. We saw him score 36 in a game where he scored a try. So it wasn't a great fantasy performance, but he has the Dolphins this week. The Dolphins let Dearden absolutely gash them. They let Tamalolo play 20 minutes and still get the win. So I think Flanagan could have a chance to have another big game in this one. Keep building that confidence. I want to see more involvement in terms of the kicking game in particular. Because last week, Ben Hunt was about 360 meters. Flanagan was about 90 meters of kicking. So I look at that, I'm a bit worried. The 90 run meters are pretty good, but I just think we need to give Flanagan another week. The try sort of bailed him out last week. I'm probably going to start him in my 17 as well, just because of the easy matchup and the offensive upside and how good the Dragons looked against a similarly weak team in the Titans without Kieran Foran.
Yeah, I think the thing with Flanagan is he passed not the fantasy eye test, but he looked really good. Like he looked really good distributing the ball. I think the problem with that is he got the ball early to Ben Hunt on the other side. But I think as his confidence grows, he'll build into the game. I think the thing is he's playing next to Sua and Sully, who look like world beaters right now. Like Sully, we don't have him in our buy list, but we were kind of off him in the preseason. But dude, if he doesn't have enough defensive work rate, but man, he's getting the ball a lot. Him and Sua they'll find breaks, and Flanagan, if he's a good support player, he'll finish them off, he'll catch offloads, he'll get some broken play running. I think he'll be fine. I don't think you're selling Flanagan. Is he good enough to play week in, week out in your 17? I don't know about that. It's probably matchup dependent, but the thing is, like, the Dragons do have a lot of good matchups to start the year. They've got one of the softer draws. So I would definitely hold on to Flanagan. I think he'll also build into the kick meters and things as he goes. So I'm not expecting a lot from him. Like 25 to 30 is good, but if he builds on his running game and he kind of latches onto Sully and Su'a, like, he'll be fine.
Yeah, hope there's big games. Remember, he's a 41 career average. That's the big thing there. So hang on, keep the faith. That's easy. Anyway, that is Buy, Hold, Sell, round 1, brought to you by Tommy Talau, Biz, and myself. I'm super happy to be back, guys. Let us know in the comments what trades you're making, and if you made it this far. 50 minutes. This is probably our longest ever episode that we're going to do. But there's so much to talk about. And there were players that we didn't even talk about. Like, I had a list of guys that we couldn't even include in this.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I mean, 25 minutes is usually what we do for 25 minutes. But like week 1, there's so much to talk about. No, it's good to be back, Longy. I'm going to go to work though, so let's wrap it up.
All right, man. Enjoy work. Thanks for joining, everyone. Buy, Hold, Sell. We'll see you on the next one.